I'm Julius, 67 years old, a retired construction foreman who built houses for 4 decades with these weathered hands. My son Gregory surprised me with a luxury cruise last month, insisting I needed to relax after losing Martha, my wife of 45 years. What he didn't know was that I came back for my heart medication and overheard everything through his office door. A one-way ticket to Panama. My house already listed for sale. My life discarded like yesterday's newspaper. If you're watching this from somewhere, your family still respects you, hit subscribe and like. Let me show you how a man who built houses for 40 years handles betrayal from the son he built a life for. The construction industry shaped every callus on my hands and every dollar in my bank account. For 45 years, I poured concrete foundations, framed houses, and eventually led crews as a senior foreman at Baxter Construction. Starting at 19 with nothing but a high school diploma and determination, I worked my way up from carrying lumber to overseeing multi-million-dollar projects across 3 states. The physical toll was tremendous. 2 herniated discs, a reconstructed shoulder and knees that forecast rain better than any meteorologist. But I never complained. Not once. All that sacrifice was for my family. Martha and I married young. She was 18, a waitress at the diner near my first job site. I was 20, already working 60-hour weeks. We built our life brick by brick, starting in a 1-bedroom apartment with second-hand furniture. Our son Gregory arrived 2 years later, transforming our world completely. Martha quit her job to raise him, meaning I needed to work even harder. Double shifts became the norm, not the exception. When Gregory showed academic promise, we decided college was non-negotiable. His teachers said he had potential for business or finance talents that mystified me with my blue-collar background. Those college years nearly broke us financially. I moonlighted as a security guard on weekends, sometimes working 20-hour stretches. Martha took part-time bookkeeping work. We remortgaged our house. But watching Gregory graduate with his business degree, seeing him in that cap and gown, made every sacrifice worthwhile. "That's my boy," I told everyone at his graduation party. "First Thomas to finish college. He's going places I never could." Gregory did go places. After starting at an investment firm, he quickly rose to become a financial advisor with his own client list. He married Amanda, a marketing executive, and they had 2 beautiful children, Lily and Thomas. Their life looked perfect from the outside. The sprawling house in the suburbs, private schools for the kids, luxury cars in the driveway. I was proud, even if I didn't understand their world of investments, portfolios, and business lunches. Our weekly Sunday dinners kept us connected as a family. Martha always cooked too much food even after the kids grew up. "Family needs feeding," she'd say, sending Gregory and Amanda home with containers of leftovers despite their protests about carbs and calories. Those dinners were the highlight of my week. Simple pleasures. Family gathered around food. Exactly what I had worked all my life to create. Everything changed when Martha was diagnosed with aggressive pancreatic cancer 5 years ago. The disease moved quickly, ravaging her body, despite every treatment modern medicine offered. I stepped back from work to care for her full-time. Those final months taught me what real work is: the endless doctor appointments, administering medications, the gentle bathing when she became too weak to shower herself. Through it all, Martha never lost her spirit. "Julius," she told me one night near the end, her voice barely above a whisper, "promise me you'll live fully when I'm gone. Don't waste time grieving what we had. Celebrate it by continuing to live." I promised her, of course. What else could I do? But after 45 years together, living without Martha felt like trying to breathe underwater. The house echoed with emptiness. I found myself talking to her photograph, setting 2 places at dinner before catching myself. Gregory and Amanda stepped up immediately after the funeral, bringing meals, helping with paperwork, checking in regularly. I was grateful, truly. But something felt off about their sudden, intense interest in my financial situation. "Dad, we should go through your accounts," Gregory suggested 3 months after Martha passed. "Make sure everything's in order. I can help you organize your retirement funds." Being financially savvy wasn't my strong suit. Martha had handled our household finances, making my paycheck stretch miraculously. I agreed to Gregory's help signing the paperwork he presented to give him limited access to my accounts. "Just to help you transition," he assured me. 6 months after Martha's death, Gregory first mentioned selling my house. "It's too big for just you, Dad. All those stairs can't be good for your knees. Plus the maintenance costs are eating into your retirement." The suggestion hit me wrong. This was the house where Martha and I had lived for 38 years. The house where we raised Gregory. The house where Martha took her last breath in our bedroom holding my hand. Every corner held memories. The kitchen door frame still had Gregory's height marks from childhood. The backyard oak tree shaded the bench where Martha and I had our morning coffee. Selling felt like betrayal. "I'm not ready," I told him firmly. "This is my home." Gregory backed off temporarily, but the suggestions continued, becoming more frequent and insistent. Amanda joined in, showing me brochures for retirement communities. "These places handle everything for you, Julius. No more yard work or repairs. Built-in social activities. It makes so much sense." Maybe I was being stubborn. Maybe they were right that a 70-year-old widower shouldn't rattle around a 4-bedroom house alone. But something in their persistence made me uncomfortable. The house was paid off, my one significant asset, after a lifetime of work. I owned it free and clear, the culmination of 40 years of mortgage payments. Then came the cruise surprise. During a Sunday dinner at their house, Gregory presented me with a gift-wrapped box containing cruise documents. "You need this, Dad," he said, Amanda nodding enthusiastically beside him. 2 weeks of sunshine, relaxation, and no responsibilities. The ship stops in Mexico, Costa Rica, and ends in Panama. They have activities for seniors, gourmet food, everything. "Panama?" I questioned. "That's one way." Gregory smiled smoothly. "We thought you might enjoy some extended time there. They have beautiful retirement communities, much more affordable than here. Your money would go twice as far." It felt wrong, but I didn't want to seem ungrateful. Gregory had clearly put thought into this. And maybe they were right. Maybe I needed to see something new fulfill that promise to Martha about living fully. I agreed to consider it, taking the brochure home. Little did I know that decision would reveal the true nature of what my son had become. 3 days before the cruise departure, I drove to Gregory's house to pick up my passport, which he had offered to renew for me. He and Amanda were expecting me around 6, but I arrived early, around 4:30, remembering I'd left my heart medication there during Sunday dinner. I still had the key they'd given me years ago for emergencies. Not wanting to disturb them if they were busy, I let myself in quietly. The house was silent except for voices coming from Gregory's home office. The door was ajar, and I was about to announce myself when I heard my name. "The old man has no idea," Gregory was saying, his voice carrying that smug tone I occasionally caught glimpses of. "The cruise is perfect. One way to Panama, and we've already contacted a retirement facility there. It's cheap, but decent enough. He'll be fine. And we're sure the power of attorney paperwork is ready." Amanda's voice now all business. "We need him to sign everything before he leaves. Frank at the office prepared everything. Dad trusts me completely with his finances now. He'll sign without even reading it. After that, we can list the house immediately." My heart turned to stone in my chest. I stood frozen, one hand on the wall to steady myself. We already listed it, Amanda corrected him. The realtor said we can easily get 400,000 in this market. Even after paying off the Panama place that leaves us plenty for the kitchen renovation and Lily's college fund. The old man worked construction his whole life, Gregory chuckled. Ironic that he's finally being useful by giving us his house. What if he refuses to stay in Panama? Amanda asked. Where would he go? His return ticket doesn't exist. All his funds will be under our control. The facility knows the situation. They deal with this all the time. American families finding affordable care for elderly relatives. Affordable care. The euphemism hung in the air like a foul odor. He's declining anyway, Gregory continued. Talking to Mom's photos, sometimes forgetting to shower. It's better this way. More dignified than watching him deteriorate. Your dad is still pretty sharp. Amanda sounded slightly concerned. Are you sure he won't figure it out? Dad trusts me completely. Construction guys like him, they're simple, straightforward. He believes family comes first because that's all he knows. He has no idea how the real world works. Their laughter felt like knives between my ribs. Every word stripped away 42 years of love, sacrifice, and trust. This was my son, the boy I had carried on my shoulders, the teenager whose broken arm I'd held all the way to the emergency room, the young man whose college education cost me years of overtime and a second mortgage. I backed away silently, decades of moving carefully on construction sites, making my retreat soundless. In my truck parked down the street, I finally allowed myself to feel the full impact of what I'd heard. My hands shook against the steering wheel. Tears burned my eyes but didn't fall. A strange calm descended over me, the kind I used to feel when facing a project catastrophe on site. Problems required solutions, not emotions. All right, darling, I whispered to myself, thinking of Martha and what she would advise. We'll do it your way, but you're going to regret this 3 times over. I drove home formulating a plan. Gregory and Amanda expected a simple, trusting old construction worker. They'd discover I was anything but simple. I'd spent 40 years solving complex problems with limited resources. This was just another project with higher stakes than any building I'd ever constructed. 2 hours later, I returned to their house at the expected time, plastering a smile on my face that never reached my eyes. I accepted my passport with thanks. I asked innocent questions about the cruise. I mentioned how excited I was for the trip. Not once did my voice betray the Arctic fury building inside me. Are you sure you'll be okay traveling alone, Dad? Gregory asked, concern dripping from his voice like toxic waste. Your old man still has some adventure left in him, I replied, patting his shoulder with a hand that wanted to close into a fist. Besides, you've taken care of everything so beautifully. What could possibly go wrong? The next morning began my strategic preparation. First, I needed information. I spent hours researching Panama and the specific retirement facility mentioned in their conversation. The Sunrise Haven retirement community appeared decent enough in carefully staged website photos, but digging deeper through review sites and expatriate forums revealed the truth. It was essentially a warehouse for unwanted elderly relatives, understaffed with reports of neglect, medication errors, and extortionate additional fees once residents were established. Several reviews mentioned residents being unable to leave due to confiscated passports and controlled finances. This wasn't just abandonment, it was imprisonment. My next step was securing legal protection. I called Frank Williams, my attorney for 30 years, the man who had helped Martha and me with our Will's house purchase and various legal matters throughout our lives. Not Gregory's Frank from the office. The real deal. I need to see you immediately, I told him. Today. It's an emergency. 3 hours later, I sat in Frank's wood-paneled office, laying out everything I had discovered. His face grew progressively darker as I spoke, bushy eyebrows drawing together in thunderous anger. "This is elder abuse, Julius. Criminal activity. We can go to the police right now." I shook my head. "No police. Not yet. Gregory is still my son. I want justice, not revenge, but I need protection." Frank nodded slowly, understanding my position. We spent the afternoon executing a series of legal countermeasures. First, immediate revocation of Gregory's limited financial access. Second, creation of a new will with specific conditions and contingencies. Third, documentation of all recent financial activities and conversations. Fourth, powers of attorney granted to Frank himself with explicit limitations. "What about the cruise?" Frank asked. "You're not seriously considering going?" "I am," I replied, "but not as their victim, as an investigator. I need to see this facility myself, document it, understand exactly what they had planned, and maybe help others trapped there." Frank looked skeptical but nodded. "I'm setting up an emergency fund for you. Separate credit card. New phone they don't know about. Daily check-in protocol. If I don't hear from you for 24 hours, I'm contacting authorities in Panama." That evening, I called my old construction crew foreman, Tony Diaz, who had worked under me for 20 years before taking over when I retired. "I need some discreet help," I explained, outlining the situation. Tony's response was immediate. "Those ungrateful little—" "Sorry, Julius. Just tell me what you need. The crew's behind you 100%. Information to start. Gregory's business dealings. Amanda's activities. Anything that might give me leverage. Consider it done. We've got guys whose kids work in those financial firms. People talk. We'll find out." The next step was hardest. I needed to secure my home. If they already had a realtor involved, they might have access. I called a locksmith and had all the locks changed. Then I contacted my neighbor, Bill Johnson, a retired police officer. "Bill, I need a favor," I said, explaining the situation over his kitchen table. "Keep an eye on my place while I'm gone. Anyone tries to enter who isn't me, call this number." I handed him Frank's business card. "Jesus, Julius. Your own son." Bill shook his head in disgust. "Martha would be heartbroken." "Martha isn't here," I replied. "And that's part of why they think they can do this." The final preparation was emotional. That night, alone in my house, I went through old photo albums. Gregory as a toddler on my shoulders. His first bike, which I had saved 6 weeks to buy. High school graduation. His wedding. The birth of his children. Where had I gone wrong? What lesson had I failed to teach? The pain was physical, a vice around my chest. I allowed myself exactly 1 hour to grieve. 1 hour to feel the betrayal fully. Then I put the photos away, wiped my eyes, and focused on what needed to be done. The following day, Tony called with information that surprised even me. "Gregory's firm has been cutting corners, Julius. Nothing overtly illegal, but ethically questionable investments for older clients. High commission products. Unnecessary account churning. And get this. 3 complaints filed with regulatory authorities in the past year, all settled quietly. Can you get me documentation? Already on it. And there's more. Amanda's charity work. The foundation she chairs, financial irregularities. Personal expenses charged to the foundation account. Small stuff, but it adds up. Shows character." I thanked Tony, pieces falling into place. The picture emerging wasn't just of a son trying to discard his father. It was a pattern of moral compromise. Small ethical failures leading to larger ones. The foundation eroded, and the structure was unsound. As any good builder knows, that's when collapse becomes inevitable. By the time Gregory and Amanda arrived to drive me to the port, my preparations were complete. I had 2 phones, one they knew about, and one hidden. Additional cash sewn into my luggage lining, copies of all important documents with Frank. A security system newly installed by Tony's nephew monitoring my house. And most importantly, a clear strategy for what I had decided to call Operation 3 Regrets. I hugged my grandchildren goodbye with genuine affection. Whatever their parents had become, Lily and Thomas remained innocent. I would protect their future inheritance from their parents' moral bankruptcy. Then came the tearful farewell with Gregory and Amanda at the port. Oscar-worthy performances on both sides. Them pretending concern and affection. Me feigning oblivious enthusiasm. "Don't forget to sign those last documents, Dad," Gregory reminded me, producing a folder. "Just routine stuff for while you're traveling. Medical authorizations, temporary financial management." "Of course, son," I replied, taking the pen and signing without reading, just as they expected. What Gregory didn't know was that Frank had prepared identical-looking documents the day before. The folder had been briefly switched when Amanda was distracted by a port announcement. What I signed were decoy papers with no legal standing. The pen I used, provided by me, not them, contained ink that would fade within 24 hours. As the ship pulled away, I stood at the railing, waving. Gregory and Amanda grew smaller, 2 figures diminishing, not just with distance but in my heart. The betrayal still hurt a physical ache beneath my ribs. But now purpose replaced pain. I wasn't just a victim sailing toward imprisonment. I was a man with a plan, heading into battle with strategy and resources. The ship's horn sounded deep and resonant like a call to arms. The fight for my dignity, my home, and perhaps my very freedom had begun. The Norwegian Bliss cruise ship was undeniably spectacular. 17 decks of luxury, multiple restaurants, pools, entertainment venues, and over 4,000 passengers and crew. Under different circumstances, this would have been the vacation of a lifetime. Even now, with betrayal fresh in my heart, I could appreciate the magnificent engineering and design. Old construction habits die hard. My stateroom was comfortable with a private balcony overlooking the ocean. Gregory had booked me into a single-occupancy suite, surprisingly generous for someone planning my permanent exile. Perhaps appearances mattered until the very end. Or maybe easing his conscience required this final luxury before consigning me to a facility that, based on my research, had shared bathrooms and 4 residents per room. The first evening, I did what decades of construction site management had taught me. I familiarized myself with the territory and began forming strategic connections. The cruise director's welcome reception provided the perfect opportunity. Dressed in my best suit, Martha's favorite blue tie around my neck for courage, I circulated among the other passengers, focusing on solo travelers around my age. "First time cruising alone?" asked a distinguished-looking gentleman at the cocktail reception. His silver hair was immaculately styled, contrasting with my practical crew cut. "First time cruising at all," I admitted. "My son arranged everything. I'm Julius Thomas." "Harold Winters," he replied, shaking my hand firmly. "Retired judge from Boston. 12th cruise for me. Widower 3 years now." A judge. Potentially useful. I made a mental note to cultivate this connection. "Sorry about your wife," Harold continued. "Recent, 8 months, cancer." Harold nodded sympathetically. "Gets easier. Not better, but easier. Are you doing the full journey to Panama?" This was my opening. "Actually, I'm a bit concerned about that. My son arranged everything, but I'm unclear about the return arrangements." Harold frowned slightly. "One-way cruise, that's unusual unless you're relocating or continuing travel elsewhere." Supposedly, I'm staying at a retirement facility for a while. Sunrise Haven. Know anything about it? His expression darkened immediately. Unfortunately, yes. My daughter is an immigration attorney. She's had 3 clients with family members essentially stranded there. Not a place you want to end up, Julius. On my suspicions confirmed by an independent source, I took a deep breath. Would your daughter have contacts in Panama who could help someone in such a situation? Harold studied me carefully, decades of judicial assessment evident in his gaze. Julius, are you in trouble? Something about his direct question and concerned expression broke through my careful composure. In a quiet corner of the reception room, I told Harold the truth. All of it. The overheard conversation. The planned abandonment. My countermeasures so far. When I finished, Harold's face showed the righteous anger of a man who had spent his life upholding justice. You're not the first, sadly. There's been an increase in what authorities call granny dumping internationally, taking advantage of lower costs in developing countries. He pulled out his phone. I'm contacting Eleanor, my daughter, right now, and there are 2 other passengers you need to meet. Within 24 hours, I had a small but powerful alliance. Harold with his legal connections. Sofia Garcia, a 71-year-old widow, whose children had attempted a similar scheme the previous year, leaving her in a facility in Ecuador before she managed to return through her church connections. And Marcus Jefferson, a former police detective traveling to Panama to investigate retirement options legitimately. Your son made one critical mistake, Marcus explained during our breakfast meeting the second day. He's assuming isolation will keep you powerless. But you're not alone, Julius. Not anymore. That afternoon, I made my scheduled call to Gregory using the phone he knew about. Dad. How's the cruise? You're having fun. His voice carried manufactured enthusiasm. It's wonderful, son, I replied, matching his false cheerfulness. Everyone's so friendly. The food is amazing. Thank you again for this gift. You deserve it, Dad. After everything with Mom, you needed a break. The casual invocation of Martha's memory stoked my anger, but I kept my voice steady. Have you thought more about that retirement community in Panama? It sounds interesting. Actually, I've been in touch with them. They're expecting you. All arranged. They'll meet you at the port. That's very efficient. And the return ticket. When would that be? A slight pause. We can figure that out later, Dad. No rush. Just enjoy yourself for now. You're right. No rush. I should go. There's a dance class I want to try. After disconnecting, I turned to Sophia, who had been listening nearby. Her eyes reflected understanding that only comes from shared betrayal. Dance class, she asked with a small smile. First lie I thought of, I admitted. Though maybe I should actually try one. Martha always said I had 2 left feet. Come on, Sophia stood extending her hand. There's a waltz class in 30 minutes. If we're fighting for our futures, we might as well learn some new steps along the way. Surprisingly, I found moments of genuine enjoyment despite everything. Sunsets viewed from the deck painting the ocean in colors that reminded me of Martha's favorite summer dresses. The rhythm of shipboard life structured yet relaxing. New friendships forming with people who understood struggle and resilience. By the 4th day, our group had expanded to include 2 more passengers with connections to Panama, plus a ship's officer, who, after hearing a carefully edited version of my situation, offered additional assistance. The company doesn't condone abandonment, the officer explained discreetly. We've seen it before. If you need emergency return booking, come see me before disembarkation. Each evening I checked in with Frank using my secret phone, updating him on developments and receiving news from home. Your house is secure, Frank reported. But Gregory's been calling me concerned that he can't reach you consistently. Says the ship's signal must be spotty. Let him think that, I replied. Any movement on the real estate front? Listing appeared online yesterday. Open house scheduled for the Sunday after you dock in Panama. Asking $425,000. Good price, actually. Martha would be pleased, I said, trying for humor despite the circumstance. She always said the kitchen renovation would pay off. Julius, Frank's voice grew serious. I've been thinking. When this is over, you should consider pressing charges. What they're attempting is criminal. One step at a time, Frank. Let's see what Panama reveals. Around day 6, Gregory stopped answering my calls. By day 8, they went straight to voicemail. By day 10, as we approached Panama, texts received only brief replies, busy with work, or signal bad talk soon. They thought I was safely handled. Out of sight soon to be out of mind. A problem resolved through geography and financial control. The foundation of their plan was my isolation and helplessness. But as the Panama coastline appeared on the horizon on our final cruise day, I wasn't afraid. I was ready. My small alliance had grown into a support network. Harold's daughter had arranged legal contacts in Panama City. Marcus had investigated transportation options back to the United States. Sophia had shared her survival strategies from her Ecuador experience. Most importantly, I had reclaimed my sense of agency. For months after Martha's death, grief had made me passive, vulnerable to Gregory's machinations. Now that fog had lifted. The construction foreman who had managed million-dollar projects and crews of 60 men had returned. The problem solver. The man who built things to last. As we prepared for docking, I stood on the deck with my new friends watching Panama City grow larger. "Ready?" asked Harold, standing beside me at the railing. "Ready," I confirmed. They wanted the old man out of the way, but they forgot something important. "What's that?" Sophia asked. "Old doesn't mean finished. Sometimes it just means experienced." The ship's horn sounded our arrival loud and triumphant. Phase 1 of Operation 3 Regrets was complete. I had made it to Panama not as a victim, but as a man with purpose. Phase 2 was about to begin. The Sunrise Haven retirement facility stood in stark contrast to its cheerful brochure images. Located 40 minutes outside Panama City proper, the 3-story concrete building had bars on the windows that were explained away as security features. The grounds, while tropical, showed signs of neglect. Paint peeled from exterior walls. The sign at the entrance hung crookedly. My small alliance had agreed that I would go in alone initially, with Harold and Marcus waiting nearby in a rented car. We had an extraction plan if things went south, but I needed to see exactly what Gregory and Amanda had arranged, to document the truth of their intentions. The facility director, Mr. Alvarez, greeted me with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. Thomas, welcome to Sunrise Haven. Your son said you would be arriving today. We have your room all prepared." The lobby had clearly been recently cleaned, but couldn't hide the underlying neglect. A sickly sweet deodorizer failed to completely mask less pleasant smells. 3 elderly residents sat in a small television area staring blankly at a soap opera with Spanish subtitles. None looked up as we passed. "Your son has arranged everything," Mr. Alvarez continued, leading me down a dim hallway. "All-inclusive care package. Very generous." "And what exactly does that include?" I asked, noting the stained carpet and flickering fluorescent lights. 3 meals daily, shared accommodation, basic medical supervision, recreational activities." He gestured vaguely toward a bulletin board showing a sparse calendar. "Tuesday is bingo." The shared accommodation turned out to be a room with 4 beds, 3 already occupied by men who appeared sedated. The space was clean but institutional, with thin privacy curtains and a shared bathroom. My bed was a narrow cot added along one wall, with barely enough space for the small suitcase I had brought. "Where are my other belongings?" I asked. I had 2 large suitcases on the cruise. "Your son arranged shipping for your main luggage," Mr. Alvarez explained smoothly. "Travel light, yes, more comfortable." Gregory had never mentioned shipping arrangements. Another lie. Those suitcases contained personal items, photographs of Martha, clothing for various seasons, things I would need for an extended stay. Their absence confirmed this was no temporary arrangement. "I'll need my passport," I said casually, "for identification purposes while I'm settling in." "We keep all travel documents in our secure office," Mr. Alvarez replied too quickly. "Facility policy. Many residents are forgetful, lose important papers." "I see. And phone access, internet. Communal phone in the activity room. Supervised internet on Thursdays. 2 hours maximum." His smile remained fixed but cooling. "Your son mentioned you might be confused about arrangements. Adjustment period is normal." "Did my son happen to mention when he'd visit?" I asked, keeping my voice light despite the growing knot of anger in my stomach. Mr. Alvarez's expression revealed the truth before he spoke. "Many families find international travel challenging, but we encourage phone calls, monthly updates." Monthly updates. Not visits. Updates. "Mr. Alvarez," I said, sitting down on the narrow cot. "How many others are here in similar situations, American seniors with families who found international care more affordable?" His professional facade cracked slightly. "I do not understand the question." "I think you do. How many residents were sent here on one-way tickets with no real plan for their return?" Alvarez glanced toward the door, lowering his voice. "Mr. Thomas Sunrise Haven provides a valuable service. Cost of care in the United States is prohibitive for many families. Here your son can provide for you at 1/4 the cost." "That doesn't answer my question." He sighed, momentarily dropping the cheery administrator act. "Perhaps 60% of our international residents have similar arrangements. It is not my place to judge family decisions. And if I decided this arrangement doesn't suit me, your care package is prepaid for 6 months. After that," he shrugged eloquently, "your son controls the financial arrangements. Most residents adapt. Make friends. Panama is beautiful country." I nodded thoughtfully, as if considering his words. "I'd like to rest now. The cruise was tiring." "Of course. Dinner is at 5:30. Mandatory attendance for new residents. Orientation procedures." After he left, I took stock of my surroundings. The roommates remained unresponsive, likely sedated as part of their care package. The window overlooked a concrete courtyard. The door had no internal lock. A plastic pitcher of water sat on a shared nightstand, no glasses visible. I waited 15 minutes to ensure Alvarez had moved on, then retrieved my hidden phone from a special pocket sewn inside my jacket. Harold answered on the first ring. "I'm in. It's exactly what we suspected. Glorified detention center." "Are you safe?" Harold's voice carried judicial authority even through the phone. "For now. But they've already mentioned keeping my passport. Communal phone with supervision. Limited internet access. This is a prison with bingo. We're parked 2 blocks east. Blue rental sedan. Can you get out?" "Not immediately. I need to document everything first. And there are others here in the same situation. We can't just rescue me and leave them." I spent the next 3 hours carefully photographing the facility while pretending to be a confused new resident, exploring his surroundings. The dining hall, with its institutional plastic trays. The medication room, where a single attendant prepared dozens of pill cups with minimal supervision. The dreary recreation room, where three elderly women played cards with a tattered deck. Most disturbing were the residents themselves. Some appeared well enough, if resigned. Others showed signs of over-medication. A few made furtive eye contact recognition of shared circumstances, passing between us without words. During dinner, a bland affair of rice and unidentifiable meat stew, I struck up conversation with my table mates. Walter, a 78-year-old former accountant from Chicago. Diane, a 73-year-old retired librarian from Seattle. Both had similar stories. Adult children promising temporary arrangements that became permanent. Financial control transferred before they understood the implications. Passports stored for safekeeping that never reappeared. My daughter visits yearly. Diane offered the only positive note. Christmas week. Brings me chocolate and new books. My son stopped coming after the first year, Walter countered. 5 years now. Still sends birthday cards. 5 years. The weight of that abandonment hung in the air between us. How many would leave if they could? I asked quietly. Most, Diane answered immediately. But where would we go, how our homes are sold, finances controlled? Even if we managed to return to the States, we'd be homeless. After dinner during the mandatory orientation session, I slipped away to call Frank with a comprehensive update, then Harold to initiate the next phase of our plan. I've contacted the American Embassy, Harold informed me. My daughter's colleague there is interested in the situation. Apparently, they've had complaints, but no first-hand documentation. I've got plenty now, I confirmed. Photos, video testimony from other residents. This goes beyond my situation. It's systematic elder abandonment. The local newspaper contact is interested too. Elder abandonment tourism has international appeal as a story. Good. I'll gather more evidence tomorrow, then implement extraction. Tell Marcus to be ready with the car at 11. There's a staff shift change, then minimal supervision in the main hall. That night, sleeping on the narrow cot with the sounds of my sedated roommate's labored breathing, I thought about Gregory. My son. The boy I had taught to ride a bike, to throw a baseball, to drive a car. The young man whose college graduation had filled me with more pride than any building I'd ever constructed. Now the architect of my imprisonment. Martha would be devastated. Perhaps it was mercy she hadn't lived to see this betrayal. But in her absence, I had to be strong enough for both of us. To seek justice not just for myself, but for Walter, Diane, and dozens of others warehoused here by families who found them inconvenient. Morning brought a watery coffee and dry toast breakfast, followed by a mandatory health check, where my blood pressure was taken by an aide who barely looked at the reading before noting it on a chart. I used this time to identify remaining areas of the facility I needed to document, particularly the administrative office where residents' documents were kept. By 10:30, I had compiled comprehensive evidence and made contact with 6 more residents in similar situations. I provided them with Harold's daughter's contact information, promising assistance once I was back in the United States. Not everyone wanted help. Some, like Walter, had accepted their fate, finding a certain peace in lowered expectations. Others burned with the same determination that fueled me. At precisely 11, I walked calmly toward the main entrance, a small bag carrying my essential belongings. As anticipated, the reception desk was unmanned during shift change. The front door, however, was locked with a keypad. This was the moment of truth. Either my observations of staff entering the code would prove correct, or alarms would sound. I entered the 4 digits I'd memorized by watching the morning staff arrive. The lock clicked open. Freedom waited on the other side. As promised, Harold and Marcus sat in the blue sedan 2 blocks east. Sophia had remained at the hotel arranging flight options. "Operation successful?" Marcus asked as I slid into the back seat. "Phase 2 complete," I confirmed. "The evidence is secured. Now for Phase 3, getting back to deliver some overdue consequences." Within hours, I sat in a Panama City law office with Harold's daughter's colleague, reviewing my documentation and giving a formal statement about Sunrise Haven's practices. By evening, a local journalist had interviewed me, promising a feature story on retirement trafficking. By the following morning, I had a new passport issued by the American Embassy under emergency protocols and a flight booked back to the United States. Sophia had chosen to remain in Panama City an extra day, working with authorities to help identify other Americans at Sunrise Haven who might want assistance returning home. Harold and Marcus accompanied me on the flight back, our unlikely alliance having grown into genuine friendship. "What will you do when you get back?" Harold asked somewhere over the Gulf of Mexico. "Exactly what I promised myself the day I overheard their plan," I replied. "Make them regret it, 3 times over." "The legal system can handle this," Harold reminded me. "Elder abuse has serious consequences." "This isn't just about legal consequences," I explained. "It's about teaching a lesson that lasts, about justice that transforms, not just punishes." As the plane began its descent toward home, I felt a calm certainty settle over me. Gregory and Amanda had seen me as a problem to discard. They were about to discover I was much more than that. I was a survivor, a builder, and now, reluctantly but necessarily, the architect of their accountability. The flight landed at 2:15 in the afternoon. Frank met me at the airport, his normally composed legal demeanor cracking with emotion as we embraced. "You crazy old builder," he said, clapping my back. "Taking on international elder trafficking. Martha would be proud and terrified simultaneously." "What's the latest?" I asked as we walked to his car. "Gregory has called my office daily, increasingly agitated that he can't reach you in Panama. The real estate agent has scheduled an open house for your property this Sunday, 2 days from now." "Perfect timing," I nodded. "And my countermeasures?" "All in place. The documentation you sent from Panama has been added to our file. Tony and his crew have been gathering additional information on Gregory's business practices, and I've prepared the legal notifications as instructed." "Excellent. Then we're ready for Phase 3, the threefold reckoning." My plan for justice was structured like any good construction project. 3 distinct phases with clear objectives, precise timing, and quality materials. I wasn't interested in vengeance or punishment for its own sake. I wanted transformation, understanding, real change. The first element of my threefold plan was financial justice. Gregory and Amanda had targeted my house and assets. They would learn that ill-gotten gains come with unexpected costs. Sunday morning dawned bright and clear. According to the online listing Frank had shown me, the open house at my property was scheduled from 1 to 4 p.m. I arrived at 12:30, parking down the street in Tony's truck, borrowed for the occasion. The real estate agent, a woman in her 30s with an aggressive smile, arrived early to place signs and prepare the property. She used a lockbox to access my home, now temporarily violated by her presence and intentions. At exactly 1:15, when 3 sets of potential buyers were wandering through my living room, I walked up the front path and entered my own home. Dressed in pressed slacks and a button-down shirt Martha had given me 2 Christmases ago, I looked like any other interested buyer. I moved through the rooms quietly, listening to the agent's pitch about motivated sellers and recently renovated by the original owner. In the kitchen, where Martha and I had shared thousands of meals, the agent was highlighting the granite countertops I had installed myself. "The craftsmanship throughout is exceptional," she was telling a young couple. You don't see this quality in newer construction. Thank you, I said, stepping forward with a smile. I took great pride in those renovations. The agent turned professional smile in place. Oh, are you a contractor yourself? No, I replied pleasantly. I'm Julius Thomas, the homeowner. Her face went through a remarkable transformation. Confusion, recognition, horror. The clipboard in her hands trembled slightly. There must be some mistake, she managed. The sellers assured me that I was safely warehoused in a Panama retirement facility. Yes, that was their plan. It didn't work out. And the potential buyers were watching this exchange with fascinated discomfort. I think we'll give you folks some privacy, the husband said, taking his wife's arm and steering toward the door. When the last visitors had departed, the agent finally found her voice. Mr. Thomas, I was explicitly told you had relocated permanently, that your son had authority to sell the property. I'm sure you were. Please call him immediately. Tell him to meet us at your office in 1 hour. His wife, too. It's time we clarified the actual situation. 90 minutes later, I sat calmly in the real estate office as Gregory and Amanda burst through the door. Their expressions when they saw me contained everything I had imagined during my darkest moments in Panama. Shock, fear, the beginning awareness of consequences. Dad. Gregory recovered, first stepping forward with outstretched arms. Thank God we've been so worried. The facility in Panama said you disappeared. We thought something terrible had happened. I remained seated, making no move to embrace him. Something terrible did happen, Gregory. You happened. Amanda hung back, her marketing executive poise deserting her completely. Julius, there's been a misunderstanding. Has there a misunderstanding about sending me on a one-way cruise to a foreign detention center? About selling my home without my consent? About fabricating power of attorney documents? The real estate agent, Ms. Brennan, according to her desk nameplate, looked increasingly uncomfortable. I think this is a family matter. Perhaps you should discuss privately. No, I replied firmly. This stopped being private when you listed my home for sale based on fraudulent claims. You're now a witness to attempted elder abuse and real estate fraud. I turned back to Gregory and Amanda. Here's what happens next. Ms. Brennan will immediately withdraw my property listing. You will return any keys or access devices for my home, and you will meet with me and Frank Williams tomorrow morning at 10 to discuss the legal ramifications of your actions. Dad, please. Gregory's voice cracked slightly. We were trying to help. The Panama facility has excellent care. Your money would go further there. We thought, stop. My voice cut through his excuses like a saw through rotted wood. I heard you and Amanda discussing your plans in your home office 3 days before the cruise. I heard everything. Their faces drained of color simultaneously. The real estate agent, sensing potential liability, stood abruptly. I'm withdrawing this listing immediately. Mr. Thomas, I sincerely apologize for my involvement. Had I known, you should have verified authority before listing someone's primary residence, I noted. But my issue isn't primarily with you. After Ms. Brennan hurriedly departed, Gregory attempted damage control. Dad, it wasn't what it sounded like. We were exploring options for your care. Your money would stretch further in Panama. While you renovated your kitchen and funded Lily's college with the proceeds from my house sale, I asked quietly. Those were your exact words, Gregory, along with how ironic it was that the old construction worker was finally being useful by giving us his house. Amanda found her voice at last. Julius, please. We have children to consider. Our reputations. If this becomes public, that's the first truthful thing you've said. This is about consequences, not just legal ones. I stood gathering my dignity around me like armor. The real estate fraud stops today, but that's just the beginning. What do you want? Gregory asked, desperation evident. Justice, not revenge. 3 parts. We'll discuss tomorrow with Frank. 10 a.m. Don't be late. As they left, shoulders slumped in defeat, I remained in the office chair, suddenly exhausted. The financial component of my threefold plan was initiated. The house was safe, but the deeper work of accountability was just beginning. The second element of my plan was social justice. Gregory and Amanda had attempted to discard me from society, to erase my presence from their comfortable lives. Now they would experience the community's response to their actions. The morning meeting with Frank went exactly as planned. Gregory and Amanda arrived promptly at 10, subdued and clearly sleep-deprived. Frank laid out the legal realities in his precise attorney manner. The attempted financial exploitation and elder abandonment constitutes criminal activity in our state, he explained. The falsified power of attorney documents, unauthorized property listing, and international abandonment at a substandard facility create significant legal exposure. We'll make it right, Gregory insisted. Whatever it takes. Dad's house is his, obviously. We made a terrible mistake. A mistake is forgetting an appointment, I interjected. This was a calculated plan to appropriate my primary asset and abandon me in another country. Frank continued. Here's what happens next. Julius has prepared a 3-part accountability process. Complete cooperation will result in him declining to press criminal charges. Any deviation will result in immediate legal action and publicity. The second phase began that afternoon with a video recording. I sat in Frank's office facing a camera operated by his paralegal. For 30 minutes, I calmly recounted the entire story. The overheard conversation, the one-way cruise, the Panama facility conditions, my escape and the documentation of other abandoned seniors. This video remains private, I explained afterward to Gregory and Amanda, unless you fail to complete all 3 phases of accountability. Phase 2 continued with a series of private meetings with key figures in their social world. Their pastor at the Presbyterian church they attended mainly for business connections, the president of their country club, the head of Amanda's charity foundation board. Each received a carefully edited version of events focused on the facts without unnecessary embellishment. I'm not trying to destroy their lives, I explained to Pastor Williams during our meeting. I'm seeking accountability and change. The community response was swift and significant. The country club board initiated a membership review. The charity foundation requested Amanda's resignation after questions about financial management surfaced. Their social circle contracted as word spread through private conversations. Most significantly, their children learned a version of the truth. Not from me, but from overhearing their parents' frantic damage control discussions. Lily at 17 confronted me directly during an unannounced visit to my home. Grandpa, is it true Dad tried to leave you in Panama? I invited her in, made hot chocolate like I had when she was small, and told her a measured version of events. People make terrible mistakes sometimes, Lily. Even parents. What matters is how they respond afterward. Whether they learn and change. I'm so ashamed, she whispered, tears streaking her face. I didn't know. This isn't your burden, I assured her. And I don't want you to take sides. Your father is still your father. He needs to make amends, but he deserves the chance to do so. The third and most important element of my threefold plan was emotional justice. This wasn't about punishment, but transformation. Real change requires understanding the harm caused and making genuine amends. I arranged a series of family therapy sessions with Dr. Eleanor Sandoval, a specialist in elder abuse recovery and family reconciliation. The first session was predictably difficult. Gregory alternated between defensive justification and tearful apologies. Amanda remained mostly silent, her marketing expertise failing her in this arena where authenticity was required. Julius, Dr. Sandoval asked during our second session, "What do you need from Gregory and Amanda to begin healing this relationship?" "Understanding," I replied. "Not just apologies. I need them to truly comprehend what they attempted to do, the harm they intended, and most importantly, why they believed it was acceptable." Over subsequent weeks, painful truths emerged. Gregory's resentment over his blue-collar upbringing, his embarrassment about my construction background when meeting his wealthy clients, Amanda's concern about appearance if I declined cognitively and required care near their prestigious neighborhood. During our fifth session, Gregory finally broke through to genuine remorse. "I convinced myself it was about giving you proper care," he admitted, voice ragged. "But it wasn't. It was about convenience, about money, about appearances. I betrayed everything you and Mom taught me about family and integrity." His recognition didn't immediately heal the wound, but it allowed the beginning of scar tissue to form. The consequences continued to unfold naturally. Amanda filed for separation 3 months later, unwilling to weather the social and financial aftermath of their failed scheme. Gregory's financial practice suffered as clients quietly moved their accounts elsewhere. The renovated kitchen and Lily's college fund disappeared with their diminished income. The final aspect of emotional justice came through my revised will, which Gregory learned about during a private meeting with Frank and me. "Your inheritance now consists of exactly one item," I informed him. "The precise cost of the one-way cruise to Panama, adjusted for inflation upon my death. Nothing more." His face registered the poetic justice of this arrangement. "That's fair," he acknowledged quietly. "Lily and Thomas will receive their portions directly in educational trusts you cannot access. The remainder goes to a foundation being established to help repatriate abandoned American seniors from overseas facilities." "Is there any way back from this, Dad?" Gregory asked the question containing layers of meaning beyond the financial. "That depends on you," I replied. "Trust is like the houses I built. Once the foundation is compromised, rebuilding requires extraordinary effort and completely new materials. It can be done, but it's never the same structure again." 6 months after my return from Panama, life had found a new pattern. I renovated my home, creating a separate apartment that I rented to Sophia, who had returned to the States after helping authorities identify other abandoned seniors in Panama. Our friendship had deepened into comfortable companionship, 2 survivors sharing morning coffee and evening conversations. I established the Sunrise Foundation, named with ironic reference to the facility that had intended to warehouse me. Working with Harold, his daughter, and others, we created resources for families considering international retirement options and rescue protocols for those already abandoned. Most weekends, Lily and Thomas visited our relationship, strengthened rather than damaged by the events. I taught Thomas basic carpentry in my garage workshop. Lily helped with the foundation's social media presence. Their presence filled my home with the energy it had lacked since Martha's passing. Gregory made small, consistent efforts toward amends, never asking forgiveness outright, but demonstrating change through actions, helping with yard work unasked, dropping off meals, listening more than speaking during our cautious interactions. One evening, nearly a year after Panama, he arrived with a small wooden box he had made in a woodworking class he had been quietly taking. "It's not much," he said, handing it to me on the porch. "Not compared to what you built your entire life. but I wanted to make something with my hands, to understand better. The box was imperfect, joints slightly misaligned, finish unevenly applied, but it represented effort and intention. "Not bad for a financial advisor," I said, running my finger along the grain. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Gregory said quietly. "I don't deserve it yet. Maybe never. But I want you to know I'm trying to rebuild. From the foundation up, like you said." I nodded, placing the box on the porch railing between us. "That's how it's done. One piece at a time, testing each joint before moving to the next." As the sun set over the neighborhood I had lived in for 4 decades, the houses I had helped build scattered throughout the development, I felt Martha's presence beside me. Not the sharp grief of early widowhood, but the comfortable certainty that her wisdom continued through my actions. The threefold justice had been delivered, not as revenge, but as consequence and potential redemption. The house remained mine, but had become a home again in new ways. The betrayal remained a fact, but no longer defined our family completely. Most importantly, I had reclaimed my dignity and purpose. The construction foreman who built houses for 40 years had built something else entirely in his retirement. A foundation for justice. A framework for accountability. A structure to shelter not just himself, but others who faced similar betrayals. Family bonds, like the houses I built throughout my career, require solid foundations, regular maintenance, and sometimes complete renovation when damaged. The work is never really finished, but with the right tools and honest effort, even the most broken structures can be rebuilt. Different, but perhaps stronger for having survived the storm. Looking back on this journey from betrayal to redemption, I've come to understand some fundamental truths about family aging and dignity. When Gregory and Amanda planned to discard me like yesterday's newspaper, they underestimated the foundation I had built over 67 years of life. They saw an aging construction worker vulnerable in his grief. They failed to recognize the resilience, problem-solving skills, and determination that had carried me through decades of creating structures meant to weather storms. The painful truth about aging in America is that we often value productivity over wisdom, convenience over connection. My son saw me as a financial burden and social inconvenience rather than the father who had sacrificed everything for his future. That perspective didn't emerge overnight. It grew slowly from seeds of entitlement, materialism, and emotional disconnection that our society too often cultivates. My healing began not with forgiveness, but with action. By fighting for my dignity, I reclaimed my sense of purpose. Each step of my threefold plan restored something that had been damaged. Financial justice secured my home and resources. Social justice created accountability within our community. Emotional justice opened the possibility, however small, of eventual reconciliation. The Sunrise Foundation now helps dozens of abandoned seniors return from overseas facilities each year. Harold, Sophia, Marcus, and I meet monthly to review cases and coordinate resources. The work gives meaning to what could have remained merely a personal trauma. By transforming my experience into advocacy, the betrayal serves a purpose beyond itself. Gregory continues his slow, difficult journey toward redemption. Some days bring progress, others regression. Amanda and he finalized their divorce, another casualty of choices made from fear and greed rather than love and respect. Their marriage couldn't withstand the weight of what they had attempted together. My grandchildren visit regularly, perhaps understanding more clearly through our family's painful lesson that character revealed in crisis defines us more truly than success or status. Martha would say that forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves, not others. I'm working toward that gift daily, finding that holding on to anger requires energy better spent elsewhere. The path isn't straightforward. Some mornings I wake filled with residual betrayal. Other days bring acceptance and even moments of genuine connection with my son. What I know with certainty is this dignity cannot be taken, only surrendered. My house remains mine, but more importantly, so does my sense of self-worth. The cruise ticket was one way, but life rarely follows the itinerary others create for us. We chart our own course even when the waters grow rough and unexpected storms arise. For those of you watching who recognize elements of your own family dynamics in this story, remember that boundaries are not barriers, but foundations. Stand firm in your worth. Document everything. Secure your legal protections. Build alliances with those who recognize your value. Most importantly, never surrender your right to determine your own path, regardless of age or circumstance. If this story has touched you, please share your own experiences in the comments below. Like and subscribe to continue these important conversations about aging with dignity. Your support helps extend this message to others who might feel isolated in similar situations. Remember, the most important construction project you will ever undertake is building a life of meaning, purpose, and connection. No one has the right to demolish what you've created. Sometimes the strongest foundations are those rebuilt after someone tries to shake them. And sometimes the most powerful legacy isn't what we leave behind, but how we stand our ground when it matters most. Have you ever had to establish boundaries with family members? How did you maintain your dignity through the process? Share your wisdom in the comments, and let's build a community of support for those navigating these difficult waters. Thank you for listening to my story. Until next time, this is Julius Thomas, wishing you strong foundations and the courage to maintain them.